After all that no from Cat, it's finally time for the funniest book of all time. Continues in
3, 2, 1, let the games begin.
Chapter 2. Here we go.
3 old ladies knit the socks of death. I was used to the occasional weird experience, but usually they were over quickly. This 24/7 hallucination was more than I could handle. For the rest of the school year, the entire campus seemed to be playing some kind of trick on me. The students acted as if they were completely and totally convinced that Mrs. Kerr, a perky blonde woman whom I'd never seen in my life until she got on our bus at the end of the field trip, had been our pre-algebra teacher since Christmas. Every so often, I would spring a Mrs. Dodds reference on somebody just to see if I could trip them up. They would stare at me like I was psycho. It got so I almost believed them. Mrs. Dodds had never existed. Almost. But Grover couldn't fool me. The freak weather continued, which didn't help my mood. One night, a thunderstorm blew out the windows in my dorm room. A few days later, the biggest tornado ever spotted in the Hudson Valley touched down only 50 miles from Yancey Academy. One of the current events we studied in social studies class was the unusual number of small planes that had gone down in sudden squalls in the Atlantic that year. I started feeling cranky and irritable most of the time. My grades slipped from D's to F's. I got into more fights with Nancy Bobofit and her friends. I was sent out into the hallway in almost every class. Finally, when our English teacher, Mr. Nickel, asked me for the millionth time why I was too lazy to study for spelling tests, I snapped. I called him an old sot. I wasn't even sure what it meant, but it sounded good. The headmaster sent my mom a letter the following week, making it official. I would not be invited back next year to Yancey Academy. Fine, I told myself. Just fine. I was homesick. I wanted to be with my mom in our little apartment on the Upper East Side, even if I had to go to public school and put up with my obnoxious stepfather and his stupid poker parties. And yet, there were things I'd miss at Yancey. The view of the woods out my dorm window, the Hudson River in the distance, the smell of pine trees. I'd miss Grover. I worried how he'd survive next year without me. I'd miss Latin class, too. Mr. Brunner's crazy tournament days and his faith that I could do well. As exam week got closer, Latin was the only test I studied for. I hadn't forgotten what Mr. Brunner had told me about this subject being life and death for me. I wasn't sure why, but I had started to believe him. The evening before my final, I got so frustrated I threw the Cambridge Guide to Greek. I was 3 steps from the door handle when I heard voices inside the office. Mr. Brunner asked a question. A voice that was definitely Grover's said, "The mythology book dropped out of my hand and hit the floor with a thud." Mr. Brunner went silent. My heart hammering, I picked up the book and backed down the hall. A shadow slid across the lighted glass of Brunner's office door. The shadow of something much taller than my wheelchair-bound teacher, holding something that looked suspiciously like an archer's bow. I opened the nearest door and slipped inside. A few seconds later, I heard a slow clop, 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 like muffled wood blocks, then a sound like an animal snuffling right outside my door. A large, dark shape paused in front of the glass, then moved on. A bead of sweat trickled down my neck. Somewhere in the hallway, Mr. Brunner spoke. "Nothing," he murmured. "My nerves haven't been right since the winter solstice." "Mine either," Grover said. "Hey," he said, bleary-eyed. "You gonna be ready for this test?" I didn't answer. "You look awful," he frowned. "Is everything okay?" "Just tired." I turned so he couldn't read my expression and started getting ready for bed. I didn't understand what I'd heard downstairs. I wanted to believe I'd imagined the whole thing. But one thing was clear. Grover and Mr. Brunner. My eyes stung. Here was my favorite teacher in front of the class telling me I couldn't handle it. After saying he believed in me all year, now he was telling me I was destined to get kicked out. "Right," I said, trembling. No, Mr. Brunner said. "Oh, confound it all. What I'm trying to say, you're not normal, Percy. That's nothing to be—" "Thanks," I blurted. "Thanks a lot, sir, for reminding me." "Percy—" But I was already gone. On the last day of the term, I shoved my clothes into my suitcase. The other guys were joking around, talking about their vacation plans. One of them was going on a hiking trip to Switzerland. Another was cruising the Caribbean for a month. They were juvenile delinquents like me, but they were rich juvenile delinquents. Their daddies were executives or ambassadors or celebrities. I was a nobody from a family of nobodies. They asked me what I'd be doing this summer, and I told them I was going back to the city. What I didn't tell them was that I'd have to get a summer job walking dogs or selling magazine subscriptions and spend my free time worrying about where I'd go to school in the fall. Oh, one of the guys said. That's cool. They went back to their conversation as if I'd never existed. The only person I dreaded saying goodbye to was Grover. Grover, you're a real Grover Underwood, keeper, Half-Blood Hill, Long Island, New York, 800-009-0009. What's half? Don't say it aloud, he yelped. That's my, summer address. My heart sank. Grover had a summer home. I'd lost sleep worrying that he'd get beaten up next year without me, and here he was acting like he was the one who defended me. Grover, I said. The weirdest thing was, they seemed to be looking right at me. I looked over at Grover. The passengers cheered. Darn right, yelled the driver. He slapped the bus with his hat. Everybody back on board. Once we got going, I started feeling feverish, as if I'd caught the flu. Grover didn't look much better. Always sixth grade. They never get past sixth. Grover, I said.
Okay, audience, that's enough. But it's making me better. I feel much better. It's finally time for...
Fails guaranteed to make you laugh.
I wasn't sure why, but I'd started to believe it. The evening before my final, I got so frustrated I threw the Cambridge Guide to Greek. Grover couldn't fool me, but I'd started to believe him. The evening before my final, I got so frustrated I threw the Cambridge Guide to Greek. Me neither, Grover said. Ticket to Manhattan on the same Greyhound as I. The only person I dreaded saying goodbye to was Grover. Grover, you're a really Grover Underwood, keeper, Half-Blood Hill, Long Island, New York, 800-009-0009. What's half? Don't say it aloud, he yelped, which was murder on my dyslexic eyes, but I finally made out something like Grover Underwood. Grover, I said. They seemed to be looking right at me. I looked over at Grover. Grover? I said. Darn right, yelled the driver. He slapped the bus with his hat. Everybody back on board. Grover didn't look much better. Grover? This is not happening. Always sixth grade. Grover, I said.